questions around. Let's see. Give me 1 second. All right, there you go, Nick. You should be able to share. We can't hear you though, but
Sorry, I had my main mic muted. Can you hear me
that's
now?
all right. We forgive you. We forgive you.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Well, the one, the only Nick Mosley.
How's it going, guys
Good. How you
and
doing?
gals? Before I start,
Yep.
I want to do I want to say one thing just because I've seen how it hasn't been working very well with other presenters.
Okay.
I'm going to be covering like a ton of different topics.
Okay.
Because I'm talking about everything tiny house, which is literally the broadest topic ever. But before I start, I want to in the chat just type like whatever topic, and you'll see I'll get into it in a couple slides. Ask whatever topic that you're most like interested in so I can read it before I get, rolling. And then I'll try and spend a little bit more time. I don't want to spend a ton of time on where to park if no one cares about that, just as an example. So but right when I start, just type all the topics you care about, and then wait until the very end to put your questions in, because I won't be able to read them. I've never been able to talk just within an hour's time. So I'm going to try and go real quick and then answer questions at the end so I can really get and kind of dive into what you guys want to know. Okay.
Sounds good. I'm gonna let you go for it. I'm gonna disappear.
Yeah, that's fine. You're good. All right. So what I'm going to be talking about is my background in the tiny house movement, the different types of tiny houses, I should say, or tiny homes that are out there. Some of the how-tos, specifically your tiny house, whether you bought it now, what do you do with it, type of things. Different choices that people have if they're looking to buy from a builder. General tiny house resource kind of items, and then questions and answers, if, like I said, if we have time. And everyone can see my screen, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna assume, yeah. It's hard to see the chat and follow it. Okay, so why do people like Zach and people all over the country have me come and speak at different events? It's because of my involvement in the tiny house industry. I personally own and operate 4 different tiny house entities. I am on just about every single tiny house nonprofit association, you name it, whether it's an industry thing or trying to play affordable housing thing. I'm the co-chair / kind of chairman at this point of the National Tiny House Builders Committee. So all of us builders that are a part of it. And then in addition to the association side, I'm also on the legislative side, which is helping write building code for places like Massachusetts. I've been working with Dan Fitzpatrick for a while on that. And then I also do the education side. So I have a school program, I'll talk about this in a little bit, where I have high schools, community colleges, juvenile hall facilities that are building tiny houses as their curriculum to promote trade skills in schools, and then involving the community around that program to take these student built houses and use them for good, whether it's to house a homeless veteran, someone in need, emergency natural disaster victims, battered women's shelters, kids aging out of foster care. There's tons of cool programs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. Okay. So don't forget, ask all your main topics, because I'm slowly starting to kind of read through them all. Okay. So the 3 main types of tiny houses out there, I guess there's technically like 4. You've got movable, which is what you see probably most of you associate with the word tiny house. It's a unit that's on wheels, typically done to like a ANSI, American National Standard or like a national fire protection. So like NFPA or ANSI, those are the ones that are on like television and everything else. Most of us, that's what we build. And then you also have modular, which is essentially the same thing. It can be on or off wheels, but once it gets on site, it sits on a foundation and it's quote unquote permanent. And then you have manufactured, which is the new terminology for mobile homes. However, there's a stigma behind mobile homes that they're built cheaply. Well, you can still overbuild to the mobile home code and make it look just like a tiny house. And the reason you have so many variants is that you can use them in so many different areas. So areas that don't currently allow, and I'll use Fresno as an example. Fresno allows movable tiny houses to be placed in a backyard as an ADU, but a city literally 15 minutes, right next to us, 15-minute drive from where I'm at now, does not. But they'll allow modular and they'll allow manufactured. So I can build the exact same tiny house and just have it inspected a different way, and now I can be in that city. And I'll cover more about placement here shortly. So choosing the best option, it really comes down to what are your options. In Fresno, I say Fresno because I'm in Fresno, by the way, guys. If you were to put an accessory dwelling unit or a unit in your backyard, in Fresno, you have all of the options. I can do manufactured, modular, or I can do a movable tiny house. But I'm always going to choose movable because I'm not paying additional taxes. I get around a lot of the silly fees that the state of California has put on additional dwellings or adding that type of stuff. So there's some people don't have any good options, but for the most part, anywhere in the country you go, one of these things will fit, and one's gonna be a better option than another one. Like I said, they comply to ANSI standards, IRC, HUD, and then certified versus non-certified. A lot of people get very confused on what a certification for a tiny house is. And I wouldn't even say that it's like a certification placard is kind of what they're talking about, that sticker or stamp that you get on a house, whether it's a HUD, anything offsite built, you have that certification placard. All that is just telling the municipality it's going into, or the RV park or whatever, that it was inspected to a health and safety code. So if I were to, I'm also a general contractor, if I were to go and build a house, a stick-built tiny house in a backyard, which you can do, I would have to pull building permits. I'd have to submit plans, and then it would get inspected by local building inspectors. A certification is exactly the same thing, but for offsite construction. So I work with two different third-party inspectors. They come, they inspect our plant, our process, our personnel. I mean, literally, it's actually more rigorous for the most part, at least initially. And then they inspect each house as it goes through. Some portions of it are remote, and then most of it is, in person. And then you get that certification placard. So it's similar. It's just an inspection process. That's all it is. Different accredited bodies, PacWest, NTA, RAGCO, PFS. Those are probably the ones I see more often than not doing tiny homes. So how to legally place a tiny home. Anyone want to know where they can place it? I didn't see that one. Where you can park it. Yeah, okay. Legally placing a tiny home is as easy as it's ever been. One, there's tons of new laws. There's new ordinances. I think at the end of Jay's talk, Deb came on and was talking about the state of Maine legalizing tiny homes, on wheels, which is also legal now in the state of Colorado. The way they inspect it, though, is more like a modular home versus a RV style like will let you do in Maine. So it's a little bit different, but both states are basically have full statewide, passes for tiny houses. Their options to park are pretty much endless. Whereas states like mine here in California, we can do a lot of ADU stuff. We do have, I think, 4 counties now that allow for standalones. They also allow for cluster developments, which is multiple houses on one property. And then same goes for just about, sorry, I keep getting phone calls. Just about every state has some type of something for a tiny house. Doesn't necessarily mean one on wheels, but they all have legal placement. The easiest way to find that out is if you're looking for specifically wheeled ones, Tiny House Industry Association probably is one of the better resources for where they have RV parks that are more tiny friendly, or communities, or just states that are more willing to kind of work with you as far as parking goes. Finding land, zoning, permanent zoning allowances and permitting. I'd say, and this is just my guess based off of my, decade in the industry and customers that we've sold to and friends of mine, I'd say probably 75% of the people that live in tiny houses live less than legally, meaning that they're under the radar. It might be less than that now that all these ordinances and stuff have passed, but I doubt it. I mean, still to this day, for every 10 houses we sell, I'd say 7 of them aren't technically legal, where they're placing them. And when I say legal, it's not illegal to park a tiny house somewhere. It's illegal to occupy it full time while parked there. That's what I mean. So there's differences about that. And somebody mentioned about Texas as far as like parking stuff and legally placing a tiny home. There are plenty of places in Texas that simply do not care. I'd say if you're kind of a little bit outside of the, Dallas, Houston, Austin, the kind of metropolis areas, you're probably okay. And even some of those are looking into it as an option, just because they're doing so much urban sprawl right now. As far as the standalone goes, though, that's a hit or miss within every state. Most people, because of the way that the ANSI building code, the code that's for a park model or RV style tiny house, like almost specifically says in the first sentence, not for full-time occupancy. So when any state municipality sees that code, the very first thing they're reading is that, oh, this isn't designed, it's not built to a safety code that allows for full-time occupancy, which is, frankly, it's nuts. But it was a way that RVIA, the people who drafted that ordinance, could get around a lot of the liability, and they could actually get that standard passed. No municipality wants every single person, people buying a lot and then filling it up with travel trailers. They just don't want to. And I understand it. It's, it's a whole stigma thing, but that's the rules, that's what we have to follow. Use as ADUs, standalones, or cluster housing. I told you there's so many different ordinances now that allow for tiny houses in backyards. For tiny houses, you buy a piece of property, like in Santa Cruz, you can buy a piece of property, Santa Cruz County, excuse me, bare piece of land, and you can place a tiny house as your primary. You can also add a second tiny house as your secondary unit. You can even technically, you could connect to create a main house and a junior ADU, and then also have an accessory dwelling unit. So you can have multiple, and that's just single family residential. If you have multi, you can add more. And those ordinances, we're working on those like day in and day out everywhere in the country. So it's not just California, but I will speak mostly about California because I live here. And as far as determining site location, not every property can have a tiny house, unfortunately, but they just can't. Some of them you physically can't get one into. It's on too steep of a slope. And then you're limited to options of maybe stick building or just, keeping that property clean and pretty without anything on it. Okay. So I don't remember who I should have asked if people are interested in purchasing or DIY, it doesn't really matter. I'll cover all these real quick. Okay. So for those of you who are looking to purchase a tiny house from a builder like myself or somebody else in the country, you want to do a few things. 2 points later is choosing a builder. Find a builder that, I'm biased. I can be just, right here. I'm your builder, but I won't do that. So find a builder that has a design flair. We all have our own flair. We all have our own kind of things that we like to do. Not that we can't all do, or like a big portion of us do customs, but you'll see by our models, you'll see by other jobs that we've done, we all have like materials that we like and designs that we like, and fun kind of our own personal unique stuff. And then we all have our own unique attitudes. So find somebody that jives with you, that you think you can work with. 100% visit them if you have the opportunity. I'd say it's a mandatory thing for most of my clients, at least so that they know that I'm real. But I would recommend that 100%. And then your options for tiny houses, if you're looking for a builder who builds modular, you have to find a tiny house person that offers that, because not all of us offer multiple different types of the same product, built to a bunch of different standards. And then as far as financing goes, not every builder offers financing. It's getting more prevalent now that the industry is growing, but there's some that are still using like personal loans, or they simply do not offer financing at all, and they have huge cash down payments. Find a builder that, if you're interested in putting 10% down and financing, a big fancy house over the course of 25 years, find a builder, that has that. And then if you're doing your own tiny house, there's plenty of steps that you want to focus on. 1, plan early. And 2, find program plans, something that you can latch onto so you have guidance. Unless you've been building stuff professionally for a long time, I would still use a good set of plans, period. And I would probably consult with a builder somewhere. These are built a little bit differently. And I'll give you an example. Most of you live in a house, an apartment, something right now, or you're sitting in a building, whatever it is. If you strap that to a chassis and drove it down a highway, what condition would it be when it showed up at its end result, end destination? Most of the time, sheetrock would be falling down, lights, fixtures would be falling over. Tiny houses are built and designed to withstand the rigorous trip, even if it's just one time, going from point A to point B, essentially through a massive earthquake and hurricane force winds simultaneously. So, all of us build, you wonder why, tiny houses are, pound for pound may cost a little bit more than a traditional house if you're buying from a builder. It's because of all the steps that we take to ensure that when your house leaves our facility and gets to you, it's in the exact same shape as when it left. Okay. So, looking to build and sell. Cool. I'll talk a little bit about selling and stuff here shortly. Or starting a business or whatever you want to call it, and standards and codes. I know Zach and Jason wanted me to talk about that. So, preparing the site. Most people think that they need some sort of a pad. I'll put it this way. They think that they either need some type of like concrete pad poured on the ground, or that they can just park it in the grass. There's no kind of in between. Concrete pad's always going to be the best option. And it doesn't matter if it's a modular, a manufactured, or a movable tiny house. Having that full, support. What's cool is you can use it for storage. You can put stuff underneath if you skirt the house or something, but it's not required. Most of the time, it's just the main thing every single tiny house needs, regardless of what it is compacted soil. So if you park it just on loose grass, like put it in the backyard as an ADU and you're like, oh, I'll just sit it on the grass, it's gonna settle, which means it's gonna like sink and twist and turn into different ways. It's just does, it's heavy. They're heavy houses. So take some time, make sure you know whereabouts you want to put it. And then if you plan on moving it, that's fine. You can have multiple locations that have a landing site essentially for that house. But it has to be compacted. And then hookups, most builders, or I think a majority of us builders now, I could be wrong, put in kind of both style hookups. So we've got RV on one side of it, and then we also have standard traditional house hookups. So you have, for example, you could plug it in with a power cord, like a 50 amp power cord, or you could literally bring power over and connect into the standard electrical panel and then, just power your house that way. Why would you ever do that? Well, if I was going to park my house for a period of 10 years, which I find most people do, they don't move them as much as you would think. A lot less than I ever thought. So for me, I would hook it up. I would glue it in, I would hard pipe it to plumbing, and I would, run power to it. Cords don't last forever. Hoses deteriorate. All those things. It's just unnecessary maintenance if you don't intend on moving. Now, having some sort of a quick disconnect or something could be really cool, especially if you're in a floodplain or a high wildfire zone, or you move it, you do 6 months here, 6 months there, absolutely could work. But the only time I really recommend cords is if you're living, for short periods of time. Oh, I already did existing water, sewer, power. How to estimate costs on the site. That is municipality to municipality. There's no real solid answer. Some places have exorbitant permit fees, like in the city of Oakland, and some, like Fresno, have almost no permit fees for adding a unit in the backyard. I'm not sure what they are in Maine. Maybe Deb later can chime in on that one, or Massachusetts, what their current thing is, or anybody out there. I guess Zach, you could tell me what it is in Oregon. But the easiest way to find that out is simply go down and talk to your planning department, zoning department, figure out what typically it would cost to add an ADU, and if they will let you add a movable. And then you're going to be able to cut the property tax. You're going to be able to cut some of the other stuff out for that using the movable, which is technically personal property. And that's a little fun fact, actually. A lot of people think that the reason that tiny houses aren't more legal is because they're personal property, and so they couldn't charge property taxes. The amount of property taxes that any municipality would get for that size of a house is so minuscule that it wouldn't even matter. What they are getting, though, is the sales tax, which is because it's personal property. So they're getting a lot of, essentially, probably 10 years of property taxes all up front. So it's not about property tax. It's about, infrastructure within a community. How many, all these people are adding, all these houses, and the sewer can't catch up with it, or we don't have enough municipal water, or it's something like that. It's too much of a drain on our power grid. That's the excuses I get a lot. However, because most families' houses, I don't remember. I think Zach might have been talking about this yesterday, Giffen. There's houses that are getting bigger and there's less and less people living in them. So if you have only like 2 people living in a traditional house that was built for 5 or 6, they're not using any more power. They're using less power than 6 people, less plumbing than 6 people. So adding an ADU is not gonna, push the limit there. And then I don't know if any of you want to transport your own tiny house. I'd say raise your hand, but I probably won't look. Personally, it's not worth it. I don't see any reason to do that ever, unless one, you're extremely comfortable pulling awkward, heavy trailers, or two, you're constantly traveling. Those would be the only two times that I would ever say, yes, spend $120,000, buy a very, very nice truck, or or get one used, either way. And I would probably also recommend like a gooseneck style setup for that, just because it's safer for travel. Um, More often than not, though, even if you planned on moving your house once a year, I'd still hire a company. They've got insurance. I don't know what, unless you're a commercial driver's license person out there, most people don't have the insurance to cover $100,000 trailer. They just don't. So, because usually it's only covered by like a commercial style driver's license. They're not that expensive. They do it every single day. They're liable for it. It's peace of mind at its best. So you don't need to do it. I wouldn't recommend it personally. I don't even like driving them myself anymore. It gives me anxiety, and I just don't like doing it. So we hired out from a third party, and I know that the house is going to get there. It's going to be covered and it's safe. And then level and initial setup process. Most tiny houses, if it's going to be like a unit on wheels, it's going to be a very simple process. You're going to be stabilizing it, connecting it to water, sewer, and power, whether that's plugging it in or direct connect, and then usually tying it down to the earth or skirting it. That's another thing that we see a lot. And then we see a lot of decks and exterior. Oh, yeah, perfect. So decks and exteriors being added to it. Remember, a tiny house, you only get so much space. If you start seeing the evolution of tiny houses from 20 years ago till now, yes, they've gotten bigger. Now that it used to be like 180 to 150 square feet, and now they're, you see more 340 to 400 square foot with multiple lofts and stuff. And I get it. It appeals more to people that are struggling to buy homes, small families. They can't live at their parents' house anymore because now they're married and have kids. They're living in a studio apartment. It's not enough. But a tiny house with a couple bedrooms is still within their budget, and they can do it. But they can't do 150 square feet, but 400 with a downstairs bedroom and a loft might work. Anyways, back to where I was going. So you're limited on space in a tiny house. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but a lot of the tiny houses that you see out there are just a big square box with a shed roof, like a flat roof. There are plenty of people that design really cool and beautiful houses, but there's no way to get more volume, to get more space than a box. So that big rectangle with a boring roof line is actually, in most cases, by design. It's to give you the most interior space within whatever size chassis, whether it's an 8 wide, 10 wide, 12 wide, 14 wide, and then whatever length it is. You can't get that back. You can't get that back. So by doing that, it makes usually the house look a little bit boring. What do you do after the fact? You add decks and landscaping and awnings and the things that you can't put on while you're driving. You just simply can't do it because you're limited to some sort of width constraint, length constraint, or height constraint. Like, I like the idea of a rooftop deck. Think it's really cool. We've done after once it gets on site type of thing. But normally you're limited to 14 feet here in California, or 13.6. So if you had a deck, that means you have to lower the roof down in that portion of the house, which gives you less interior volume. So just one of those design considerations. And finding harmony with existing structures. You'll see in a lot of bills and ordinances, if you really are diving into where you want to look, you'll notice that they all have some stipulation of what the house, kind of the look of it is. Like, it has to have this. It can't have mechanical on the roof. And you're going, why the heck are they putting these restrictions? Typically, it's to eliminate a traditional style travel trailer. That's why most of them do it. So if you start kind of reading between the lines, you'll see like, oh yeah, travel trailers have an air conditioning unit on the roof. That makes sense. They don't want that style. So if we use a mini split, then we're fine. And then it has to have framed out windows. Well, most of those travel trailers have the grommeted style automotive windows. Now it eliminated them. So, and that was by design. We did that on purpose because they could not figure out how to pass the bill without eliminating those types of units. Excuse me. Okay. I know Corinne very well, Deb. Thank you. Yeah, she's cool. That she's from Tiny Houses of Maine, by the way. So that was Deb in the comments. Preparing for tiny living. I think another thing, I don't know if Zach or John are on this call. I know, no, not Tiny House, Giffen, Zach. But you see TV shows, and I'm sure you have all seen them. And most of the time they have like this gimmick where you're putting all the, actually Zach and Jason might have done this too, where you have to put like all your belongings in like a bucket, and they're like, this is all you get for the rest of your life. Good, good luck. And that's the furthest thing from the truth, or at least in the way that we design, the way that we build, and the way that we work with our clients. I'm more on the livability side of things. So I want to create a house that's for long term. Where if you're having a family, you can grow into it type of design work anyways. But people have stuff, and I understand that. And I think most builders understand that. And so there's only two ways to deal with stuff. We all have it. And if you don't, then good for you. Like I have too much stuff. I have enough tools that I own to fill probably 50 tiny homes, or close to 50 anyways. Like I'm not going to get rid of them. They're a tool. I probably will never get rid of a tool ever in my whole life. But we all have stuff is the point I'm trying to make. So there's two options to deal with that. Either you design a house where you have so much storage that you can put all that stuff that you want to keep in it. Or the other option is you have a little shed or a little that pad so you can store stuff in, barrels and buckets and stuff underneath the house. And I know it's inconvenient, but there's a lot of items that people don't think about that they need to that you're storing currently in your house right now, apartment, wherever you're living, parents' bedroom, it doesn't matter. It's stuff like suitcases, jackets, things that you're not wearing or using every day. But if you're traveling, you have a suitcase or a backpack or a duffel bag or something. All of those items that you don't use, which I guarantee for most of you have a ton of items that you don't use every day. And I could be wrong. Once again, I'm just reacting the way I would with most of the clients, most of the people that I've interacted with in the industry. Personally, when it comes to preparing for tiny living, I give people homework. I say, go down to a craft store or a Home Depot, pick out little stickers and stick them on every single thing that you use for the next month. Not only will that tell you how you live, but it'll tell you what priorities you have in your day-to-day life. I'd always do little anecdotes, but I can already see my time. I don't even think I'm a quarter of the way done, so I'm in trouble. Understanding tiny house pricing. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, if you think that tiny houses have gotten really out of hand expensive, in some cases you're right. There's inflationary costs. There's also builders that started out 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And, yes, it was very, very inexpensive to buy them back then. But a lot of smaller builders you'll see that are just starting out will have really great deals on houses. But they don't have the overhead. They haven't had to go through all the turmoil of figuring out how to build these things. And then just especially after COVID, prices skyrocketed and they just haven't come down that much. So tiny houses are more expensive than they were 5 years ago. I will not argue it at all with that. There is still ways to build them on a budget, whether it's through a builder or DIY. Talk to builders. Unless they only strictly build models that are the same cookie cutter one every single time, usually they'll work with you. Using a tiny house as an investment. Somebody on here was asking that they've got a construction background, they want to build. There's a great, it's never been easier to start a tiny house company, because when I started, there were so few in the country that we were all separated too. It's not like I had, 10 in California. I don't even know if there was one. It was like me and Jay, because Tumbleweed had already moved to Colorado, I think, in 2012. So yeah, there's just like no one here. There's no one to emulate, to go and visit, to learn from. So we're all just, doing our own thing. And what's crazy is that most of our processes weren't that far off. So we all learned the same mistakes as we were going, as, pieces were falling off and all of that type of stuff. But there's a lot of other ways to do it besides just building and starting a company and selling. Starting any company is difficult. I won't, argue that. And a lot of people think that, us tiny house guys are just making money hand over fist. We do it because we love it. Unless you see us, like these champion home guys that are building 1,000 houses a year that are just all little cookie cutters. Most of us are making enough to live and support our families and our staff, and that's pretty much it. There's other ways to do investments though. You can buy them, you can rent them, you can find a company that has dealer programs and resale programs or even referral programs and get involved in the tiny house industry and make money that way. Long and short-term stay considerations. This is specifically design-wise, when you're doing design and say you're building it for an Airbnb or Vrbo or some type of vacation stay, you have to factor in that there's a difference between a couple coming in and staying for 2 nights than somebody who's renting it out yearly. You can almost do a hotel room style with no, like a little baby kitchenette and all of that, and bring your price down, which makes your profit margins go up, or your return on your investment anyways. And then anybody owning a tiny home now that wants to sell it, this one was more important years and years ago. Now it's easier than ever. There's so many different platforms that you can post on. A lot of them will take a portion of the sales price, but they're doing all the work for you. So dealers, community builders, organizers, communities are still lacking in my mind. I think we're probably in the next 5 years, I think we'll figure it out. But as of right now, it just isn't there. So I'm sweating. I forgot to turn the air on, and I don't know where you guys are at, but I'm in Fresno. It's like 100 degrees right now. Where to find real facts about tiny housing? Go to the industry associations. Those are going to be usually your best bet. And then pick and choose your builders, or your platform, web guys, because most builders want to sell. So they'll, is it legal to put in my backyard? Yes, of course it's legal, but that's because they want to sell you a house. So just beware. Do your research. Even if you're looking up us, do your research on me. Hopefully you find mostly good stuff. And I do the same for any other resource. There's so many. You guys may have heard of some, because some of them have made national news now. There's tiny house companies and people out there that are scamming people. They sound like really good on paper, but they're new companies and they're growing really fast, and they just are burning people. And it's frankly, it sucks. And then how to get more involved in the movement. Join these associations, start a local chapter, find out how you can help them get legislation or any of that stuff passed. Before I do this, because I'm running out of time and I'm going a lot slower than I thought I would, I want to quickly tell everyone what's going on with standards within the tiny house industry. So I mentioned in the beginning that there's a few different standards that tiny houses are built to. You have modular, you have manufactured, you have movable, which is like that RV code. But what we don't have currently is a tiny house code that is separated from the RV, but isn't quite the modular, because we want to remain movable, right? That's kind of the goal with movable tiny houses, is you have the flexibility to move them if you need them. So the Tiny House Industry Association, which is just as it sounds, it's lenders and builders and DIYers and all these, mixture of tiny house enthusiasts all in one area. That's all it is. So what we have done is we've reached out to, and this has been going on for a long time. We reached out to the International Code Council, which the I-codes are basically the bare standard for the entire country and even other countries. It's the building code that makes your house safe to live in and occupy. So as of I guess the beginning of this year, or maybe technically the end of last year, we have been working on, and I say we because I happen to be one of the committee members drafting this. We have been working on a code for just that. So to separate us from the RVs, where that's the placement issue. Most places don't want the RVs because the second they look up that code, not for habitation, right? So they say, no, we won't allow them. And then you've got the modular thing, but that has to be mounted to a foundation. And now you've spent all that extra money. So we're missing that middle ground. And that's what we're working on now and hoping to have ready by next year. If not, at the latest would be the 2027 code cycle. That sounds far away, but it goes really quickly. And code is every 3 years, and it's a pain in the butt. But this is going to help out hundreds of thousands of tiny house enthusiasts on placement and health and safety and all these other things of the issues that we have. It's not the end all, because even if we pass this and it goes into the code, there's still cities within, like California, the state can adopt a building code and then each city can kind of pick and choose whether they like stuff. Most, like Maine, is not like that. So it'll be good for most people. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I think it's probably as in depth as I want to go right now, because I feel like I'm just going to spend too much time and lose everybody. So these are the main kind of models and options that you have out there if you're looking to buy a house. You've got custom design, you have models, or you can do it yourself. Movable, all that stuff. You can screenshot this if you want. Custom builds can be designed to do almost anything. There's pros because you can literally tailor a house to exactly what your needs are. If you need 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, boom, find a designer that can get that done in 400 square feet. It's not impossible. But there's a downside to customs as well. They take longer for approval to build. If they're super crazy, overly custom, for a specific person or purpose, they're hard to sell. You have to find that exact right buyer that had the same mindset as you when you designed it with your builder or your DIY, either one. Models are going to be just as they sound. They're going to be either, something that is built to order, or they're going to be a design that a company came up with that works for the masses. Now, there's a lot of builders out there that they design a custom house for somebody and then they make that a model, and then they design a house for somebody and they make that a model. I'd say those are more like the built to order or almost semi-custom units. A model is typically like something that you'll see this if you go to our website. It's bigger, it's open, it doesn't have a lot of the flair as it doesn't have the specifics because it's trying to be built for as many different types of people as possible, and then you customize that house with your own furniture and your own flair to make it your own. And then DIY build is exactly what it sounds like. You're building it yourself, make it as crazy or as simple as you want. You're in a lot of control when you do that. Not only on cost, but remember, it's going to be the least expensive option because you're cutting out all the labor, the overhead, and all the other stuff that is associated with building it. If you have the time and you have the skill, it's great. I love building. I do everything on my own. I never hire anybody, but I've been in this industry since I was like 6 years old with my dad. So I have that benefit going for me. And I'll talk a little bit. I'll show some pictures anyways. Excuse me. So customs. This is one that's in Santa Cruz. This is one that we designed for a lady that she was in a high wildfire area, which I thought was kind of interesting with the wood fireplace. And yeah, we did end up like staining. I've got interior pictures of this somewhere, but we did like a bunch of staining with wood dye and it was really cool. They can be built in any shape, style, like I mentioned. Can you guys see my mouse? Can they see my mouse? This?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So like this one was meant to match a Spanish style unit as an ADU in the backyard of a San Diego house. We literally found a stucco product that was flexible, bought industrial buckets of it, and then troweled it on to make it. They ended up putting the roof on themselves, even though I could get this same style in metal. I couldn't use terracotta because it was just too brittle for highway driving. But all of us builders, man, we have our own kind of creativity. More customs. This is a dorm room with a pull-out closet, house with a big, 14 or 15 foot glass collapsible deal. Burner bikes in the back of a bike garage. Commercial customs. We did this one for IHOP. We did one for Otter Pops. We've done it for coffee shops and violinists and music studios and all sorts of cool stuff. Oh, I forgot about this slide when I was mentioning that. This is what I was talking about. Somebody wanted, they have a teenage son. I think it's teenage daughter. Yeah, they've got a teenage daughter. Oh no, they've got a teenage son, excuse me, and then a daughter. Young. I think she's like 6. So they wanted a downstairs bedroom, a smaller loft for her, and then a larger loft for their teen. They also wanted him to have his own bathroom that's also a guest bathroom, and then they would have their own bathroom as well. This is a 400 square foot tiny house that has a downstairs bedroom, and this is a king bed, a queen loft up here, and then a twin loft. It's like a twin or a full loft over there. It's possible. Now, would this house feel larger? Oh yeah, and this is like a catwalk. So this is big. This is a 14-foot tall house, by the way. So on a drop axle. So I mean, this is, I think, like over 7 feet tall. Yeah, this is a solid design. This is a good one. So this is on a 40 by 10.5 foot platform. It's a big unit. Big unit. I see a lot of people that are mentioning like double houses. So this is one that we're starting construction on, I don't know, in a couple weeks, I guess. It is, it's two houses. This is going into Santa Cruz Hills again. And this is a full, well, it's a over a king size bedroom with a big walk-in closet, a bathtub, double vanity, and then a massive room for their two children. It is designed so that an additional unit down the road can be added here as a humongous master suite. And these are both 400 square feet. So this is an 800 square foot tiny house. I am not one to judge on how big or small somebody, how much space they need to live. But I know because I have kids, something like this is very appealing to me. It's expandable. It's, you know, you could absolutely take this one unit down here and turn this into a big studio and just sell it as that, or just build it as that. But the way that this is laid out is a bedroom, bathroom, washer, dryer, and closet space unit. And this other one is humongous kitchen, big dining room, and then a large living room, and then a secondary guest bath. Like I said, they have a growing family. They have two children now. They're having another child. They want to be closer to their grandparents and live on this beautiful property with this beautiful view. So something like this is what worked for them. You know, whether you think it's considered a tiny house or not, I do. Oh, and they're not connected. So they're like full, they're in Santa Cruz, so the weather's like gorgeous all the time. But we also are working on another one for a lady in Los Angeles that has a connection piece in between. It's not movable, but it's going to be part of their deck, you know, deck system, I guess. So there's like a double unit for you. Oh, there's a cool extruded view. So they have like an outdoor kitchen and fireplace and planter. This will eventually turn into a deck, I would imagine, whenever they add that additional unit. How much time do I have? 7 minutes. All right, we're going speed round here. Models are what, like I said, they're generic. Doesn't mean they can't have lofts, but they're gonna be more designed for, and I think all this is on our Instagram or website too. So they're gonna be designed more for the masses, less specific to you. All right, do-it-yourselfers out there. Find some good plans, make your own. If you make your own, just make sure that you go through some type of structural engineering, or bring them to a drafts person just in case. A lot of times I find that the biggest mistake most people doing on their own plans, they don't account for material thicknesses like walls, floors, ceilings, you know, even the sides of cabinets. You know, that it's just lines that they draw, and it just doesn't work that way. So either find some plans or consult somebody, you know, even contact a builder. You know, they might help you based, you know, you might be able to pay them to do drawings for you based off of a, you know, a napkin drawing. Find a course or workshop. They're becoming more and more popular, I think, especially because now that a lot of us builders that we've been in the, you know, industry for over a decade and have all the experience are willing to pass it on to people that want to learn how to build or just want to do their own house, but we want them to be doing it safely to avoid all the headache that we get and all these horrible articles that we see where a tiny house flipped over on the freeway because somebody built it themselves and they didn't understand weight balance, you know? So definitely find somebody to help guide you. When you're doing your budget, I would add 30% minimum. I've never seen a DIYer stay within budget. Not that you couldn't do it, but most people can't. Choose materials that will hold up. This is the biggest problem I see with DIY. So if you're a DIYer out there or you want to, please don't make this mistake. It's using secondhand items for structural components of your build. I have nothing against repurposing or recycling materials. In fact, I think it's awesome. But there's certain things that are very, very important to the integrity of a tiny house that is able to travel down a highway, like I said, in that hurricane slash earthquake simultaneously, don't secondhand use a trailer. Don't tear down a RV, a travel trailer, and with the intent to build a tiny house. It's not going to work unless you are a welding and metal fabricator. It's not going to work. Also, I wouldn't do anything structural. So nothing that is protecting the structure of your house. I probably would against using roofing, and then windows for sure, unless you can guarantee that they're tempered and meant for safety and road travel. More often than not, they aren't. So like secondhand ones. If you really have this beautiful stained glass thing you want to do, just sandwich it between two pieces of safety glass, and then you can build that window yourself. Build location, I'm not even talking about that right now. Certification. Personally, we have a tiny house DIY program that has integrated certification and inspection with a builder support and oversight. So I'm looking and physically watching you as you build. Well, not physically watching you. It's all digital. It's online. But we're keeping tabs on it. I got 3 minutes. I'm going to go quick. So this all rooted from that high school program I told you about, working with career technology education. It made me realize that we need to create plan sets that most of my target audience is 16 to 18-year-old young men and women. They don't understand complex build plans. In fact, most people I know don't understand complex build plans. So by giving them extruded graphics and video and all of these elements, just make their build successful. Like if you're looking at what these detail things, you're not going to see stuff like this on any set of plans typically, because most builders, we don't need these things to build. So most drafters and designers and architects don't put them in there. But for people that are building one, they're not going to spend years of their life learning how to read drafting plans. They're going to watch YouTube videos and they're going to try and find something like this so that they can use it as a reference. Well, we just built all that in here. This is the only part, by the way, of the whole thing that I'll be selling myself, because not a lot of people will do this. And then our little guides. How much time do we have? 2 minutes. Our online course, it's all broken down, just like almost like a digital textbook. Comes with everything you need. I don't have time for the video, so I'm going to skip it. There's a community project concept we've been working. This happens to be in San Jose. I don't know. I don't know if they're ever going to move forward with it, but it's an RV park. And there's stuff. I pointed to the screen like you guys can see my hands. There's stuff around this. It's in like a commercial style area. So there's work nearby. There's additional, where we put it like an area for parking, and then this big wide lane right here in the middle is for fire trucks because they have to have it. That's like their main road through their park. But instead of having 68 slots for RVs, we put like, I think 28 or 30 tiny houses. And obviously they're all the same ones, which wouldn't necessarily be true. But that's right now the easiest way that we can make tiny house communities a reality in the next year to 2 years, is repurposing dilapidated RV parks. At least that's my opinion. Q&A, if I didn't go over my time, I didn't technically, but I also don't have any time for Q&A. So just, I don't know, enjoy the rest of the show and reach out to me separately, I guess. Bye, guys. Oh, I'll wait till Mike comes on.
Oh, what's up, Nick? How's it going, man? Oh,
I don't know, man. Just doing my thing.
woo!
Friday.
It is Friday. It's fun for Friday.
My school program.
Oh yeah, look at that. You got a nice one there.
That's Franklin.
Franklin.
Yeah, that's Franklin.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, thanks so much for giving us everything about tiny homes. Really appreciate it. And yeah, if you guys are interested in more tiny house information, check out Nick, cowtiny.com or
CalTiny.com is or CaliforniaTinyHouse.com. Instagram. Everything's at California Tiny House, not homes. California Tiny House, like singular. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yep.
I always
It's
forget
awesome,
to
you guys.
give my information.
No worries. All good. People know where they can find you. Good stuff. Well, appreciate it, and always good. We love it.
I need more time. I feel like I'm rushed every time, dude. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Well,
I'm out of here.
we're gonna kick you off so we can get Michael on here.
Yep.
See you,
Please
Nick.
do.